Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Today is Wednesday, which means it's the Ask Me Anything episode of the show. And I've just got to say, I love the people that listen to this show because you guys come up with some of the strangest questions that I have ever been asked, and I love it. I love it because it gives me the chance to do some research and to learn, and then to spread what I've learned onto others. And the first question that I have, and this is going to be somewhat delicate because of the subject. The question, and not delicate in, like I have to sort of like, oh, don't drop it, it'll break. Like, I have to make sure that I answer it in such a way as to where it's still radio friendly for iHeartRadio. And iHeartRadio is just one of the many outlets where you can listen to the show. You can find all of those over at fppradio.com. The first question was sent to me about a week ago, and the question is, how do bees have sex without stinging one another? And this is not anything I have ever thought of, ever in my life. And somebody somewhere, I forget exactly who it was, but somebody had sent me this question, and it just made me giggle for a moment. And then I started researching. And, well, apparently male bees do not actually sting. And they only mate with the queen bee that also does not sting. But how do they actually mate? Because I never really thought about this before, and I started thinking, well, maybe it's kind of like ducks or birds, to where, like the female puts some eggs somewhere, and then the male goes over and fertilizes them. Well, no, like birds, or not birds, but bees, and the information that I have here, I believe, is about honeybees, and I'm guessing that, honeybees are somewhat the most popular kind of bee. So when people are thinking of bees, like, that's what they're thinking of. Well, apparently, the way bees reproduce is that they fly and they have sort of like acrobatic aerial copulation. The information here comes from livescience.com, and they have in their writing here where they've actually got an article about how do bees reproduce. So they write, a typical honeybee colony comprises a large queen, 200 or so male drones whose sole purpose is to reproduce with the queen, and then there are thousands of sterile female worker bees. So the bees that fly around and buzz around in your garden and buzz around and like annoy you and sting you, those are the females. They are the worker bees. The males, all they do is have sex with the queen. However, and I'll get into this, like, that's not, like, it sounds from a man's point of view like, oh, like, my sole purpose is reproduction. Like, that sounds like a wonderful, glorious life. But I'll explain in just a bit why that is not a wonderful, glorious life. And if you are, thinking about, like, in the next life, I want to be, like, if you believe in reincarnation and you're thinking, like, I want to be a male drone bee because my sole purpose will be to reproduce. Well, I'll explain why that's not something that you really want to achieve. The article here from Live Science continues. It says, when it's time to mate, the queen will fly to an area where hordes of drones are congregated in the air, waiting for the queen, who is apparently a virgin, according to the article here. Scientists still don't know how the queen and the drones know where to meet. Some have said the phenomenon looks like a drone comet, as the drones chase the queen with continual consolidation and disassembly of the courting drones. When she appears, several of the drones, one at a time, mount her. The drone inserts his endophallus into the end of the queen's abdomen and then sends the material that causes her to get that, according to a researcher at Warsaw University. And after he has sent his material that causes baby bees to form, he then dies. The copulation is over, and the drone falls to the ground and dies. And sometimes he suffers for a couple of minutes or up to a couple of hours. So, yes, being a male drone, your sole purpose is to mate with the queen, but you get to do it one time and then you die. And every drone bee does wind up, unless for some reason he flies away and does not actually wind up mating with the queen. And that happens occasionally because sometimes someone will disturb the comet, if you will, and then the bees disperse. So the first question was, how do they mate without stinging each other? And that's easy. It's because the male bee and the queen bee do not sting. But then that got me thinking about, like, do the male bees know that they're going to die after they mate with the queen? And, well, apparently, nobody has really done, like, MRIs on the brains of a bee, but it does not appear to be something, like bees aren't really conscious, aware beings. Like, maybe they can make decisions, but it is widely speculated that no, bees don't know that they're going to die afterwards. Or if they do, they don't care because, like, this is my purpose. Sort of like with the praying mantis. And then there are certain flowers that after they put out whatever sort of seed, they wind up dying. And, like, that's their purpose, is to just make more of the plant. And, like, you grow and then you bloom and then you, like, turn into something that spreads seed and then you die. So, no, male bees, either they don't know or they don't care. In either case, it doesn't really make any difference. The next question is, does McDonald's have real ice cream? And the question was further specified of, like, actual cream in their soft-serve ice cream product. And, well, according to the McDonald's website, where you can go in and they've got this section, I think it's called, like, What's Our Food? Well, according to McDonald's, quote, you'll find ingredients like milk, sugar, and cream in our reduced-fat vanilla ice cream. That's not really giving me a lot of hope that it actually is milk, sugar, and cream in the ice cream. It's just ingredients that are like milk, sugar, and cream. So, as they say, the world may never know. Stay tuned.
During the 2013 Porcupine Freedom Festival, Davi Barker presented an idea for a renegade psychological experiment. Since then, he has refined his idea and put his plan and research into writing. He explains, we aim to show the world beyond a shadow of a doubt that power corrupts absolutely and corrupt authority deserves no obedience. Authoritarian Sociopathy is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. ExpressCoin is the best choice for buying Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin, and more. ExpressCoin prides themselves on their customer service, so much so that the back end on the website should allow them to be even more focused on your needs. Get your cryptocurrencies with money order, check, wire transfer, or cash deposit. Get started at expresscoin.fppradio.com. That's expresscoin.fppradio.com. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for t-shirts, precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. There's an Amazon shopping iframe built into the website, or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. That's shop.fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I'll get back to the Ask Me Anything in just a moment, including home remedies for cavities and my thoughts on Russell Brand's trademarking of his supposed spelling of the word revolution. But first, I want to make sure that I tell you about the home remedy for getting gold and silver in your pocket or in your safe. And that would be Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. For over 35 years, Roberts & Roberts has been a trusted source for buying and selling your investment-grade precious metals. They also take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts Brokerage today for knowledgeable advice on investing and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 850-478-5270 or online at rrbi.co. That's rrbi.co. So what are some good home remedies for a cavity? And are there any home remedies for a cavity? Well, apparently, according to the website top10homeremedies.com, yes, there are some home remedies for cavities. Now, these home remedies don't necessarily specify whether or not they will actually fill the cavity, but they will stop the toothache associated with, and they can also, according to some of these remedies that they have listed, they could also prevent the cavity from spreading. So let me go through some of these. Clove, apparently, is one of the most important ingredients for treating any kind of dental issue, including cavities. Due to its anti-inflammatory, analgesic, and antibacterial properties, clove can help alleviate pain and prevent the cavity from spreading. So how do you use clove to help with the toothache or to treat a cavity? Well, you dilute 2 to 3 drops of clove oil with 1/4 teaspoon of sesame seed oil. Put a few drops of this solution on a cotton ball or dab it on, or rather, and dab the solution on the affected tooth. In the picture here, and they have a picture where somebody's using a bowl, it appears that they're using a Q-tip to dip into the mixture and then presumably rubbing that on the tooth. They say that you should repeat this every night before you go to bed. Another option is to gently chew a whole clove to extract its oil. Then keep the clove under your tongue for several minutes. You should not use clove oil in excess or too frequently, as it is best used for temporary relief. Apparently, salt can also be used to treat cavities due to its antiseptic and antibacterial properties. It can reduce inflammation, ease pain, draw out any infection, and prevent growth of bacteria in the mouth. To use salt to treat a tooth, you would dissolve 1 teaspoon of salt in a glass of warm water. And it's important that you use warm water and not cold, because things don't really dissolve very well in cold water. That's why if you ever go to a restaurant, and if you're like me and you're from the South and you like sweet tea, then you know if you go to a restaurant out west or up north and you ask for sweet tea, they'll tell you, well, we've got sugar on the table. Well, no, that's not how you make sweet tea. You make sweet tea by putting the sugar in the hot tea, and then the sugar actually dissolves. If you put sugar in cold tea, and that's basically what they're telling you to do, is, well, just put sugar in this cold tea. Well, no, that's not going to work. Then I'm just going to wind up with a bunch of sugar sitting at the bottom of my tea, and then, like, the last sip is going to be nothing but sugar. And no, like, that's totally ruining my tea. That's why you can't put sugar in cold water. Same thing with salt, is because things don't dissolve well in cold water. So you put this 1 teaspoon of salt in a glass of warm water. You swish that in your mouth for about 1 minute. Concentrate it on the affected tooth. So, like, swish it in the side of the mouth where the toothache is or the cavity. And they say that you should do this 3 times a day until the symptoms subside. Alternatively, you can mix half a teaspoon of salt and a little mustard oil or lemon juice to make a paste. Massage the gums gently with the paste for a few minutes. Then gargle with warm water. Repeat that twice a day for a few days, and that will kill bacteria. Oil pulling, and this is something that I've heard about, but I've never actually done, because you have to keep this in your mouth for about 20 minutes. And that just seems like way too long to, like, not be able to talk or whatever. And since I kind of, talk for a living, like, being able to talk is kind of important. So on the oil pulling, they report here, oil pulling is an age-old practice that can reduce cavities as well as bleeding gums and bad breath. It helps clean the mouth of harmful bacteria that are responsible for different types of dental problems. So what you do for the oil pulling is you put a tablespoon of either sesame oil, sunflower oil, or coconut oil in your mouth. You gently swish it around for about 20 minutes. You then spit it out. You should avoid gargling or swallowing the oil. You then rinse your mouth out with warm water. Use salt water for added antimicrobial benefit. And then brush your teeth as usual. And you should do this daily, in the morning, and on an empty stomach. Garlic is also something that they list here as being able to help with a cavity. Being rich in antibacterial as well as antibiotic properties, garlic is often recommended for tooth decay and cavities. It can also provide respite from pain and promote healthier gums. I'm not going to read how you use garlic. I'm not going to tell you how to use any of these others. I'll just tell you what they are. And, of course, the link will be over in the show notes. You can read the information yourself. Licorice. And this is one that totally surprised me. According to a study published by the American Chemical Society's Journal of Natural Products, licorice root may help keep teeth healthy. There are 2 effective antibacterial compounds in dried licorice root, licoricidin and licoricoflavin. And, that's licoricoflavin A, not to be confused with any other letter of the alphabet, that can prevent the growth of cavity-causing bacteria. Plus, the herb can also help reduce plaque. You can also use turmeric, and there are several others. And again, the link will be in the show notes. You can read the entire top 10 yourself. And when we come back, I'll talk about the Russell brand trademarking of revolution on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
When her plush and comfy life suddenly and unexpectedly fell apart, Brooke and her dog Cloud set out to defy the odds. If this is a man's world, as they say, living on the streets is no place for a young woman. One day she awoke in the redwood forest and realized she had become a hobo, and would ultimately come to know exactly what it means to survive. How to Be a Hobo by Brooke Willett is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
Hey, this is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends radio show. I've been working with computer programmer Derek Slopey to create Fiend Phone. I'm using Fiend Phone right now to talk with and record one of my co-hosts in real time. Take it, Davi.
Hey, this is Davi Barker, and I'm 1,000 miles away from Michael, but we sound like we're in the same room.
We sure do, Davi. So, Davi, please tell the nice people more about Fiend Phone.
Fiend Phone is free, open-source software that opens up a global world of possibilities for collaborative, high-quality remote voice media production, and I'm digging it.
People can try the Windows beta version of Fiend Phone right now at fiendphone.com. But we're also raising money to vastly improve Fiend Phone and vastly improve independent talk media worldwide.
So go to fiendphone.com to help out. Who will build the audio roads? We will, with your help.
That's fiendphone.com. FEENPHONE.com. Foxtrot, Echo, November, phone.com.
Fiend Phone. I never knew remote audio could be this good.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. I'll get back to the AMA in just a moment, but first, I want to make sure that I tell you about Survivor Max. Survivor Max by Davi Barker is the story of an 11-year-old boy named Max who must survive the zombie apocalypse alone in New Hampshire. These slow-moving, non-thinking, lame brains swarm his home searching for living flesh. Max must apply his Porcupine Freedom Scouts training to plan his escape, but first he must prove that he's too smart to die. Look for Survivor Max on Facebook and Amazon, or read Chapter 1 for free at survivormax.com. That's survivormax.com. And before anyone asks, no, there are not any home remedies to prevent becoming a zombie, other than don't get bit by a zombie and don't get infected with whatever the virus is. So, as long as you can do that, you will not be a zombie, and I guess that is a home remedy of sorts. But enough about home remedies and zombies. What about Russell Brand trademarking something that he did not create? And that seems to be the new sort of fad, is to trademark things that you did not create. And the reason I say that that's kind of a fad is because Amazon recently, I think they patented photographs with a white background. Obviously, the people over at Amazon were not the first ones to ever take a photograph with a white background. But they were the first, apparently, to file the paperwork saying, we own this. And, well, now the U.S. Patent Office says they own this. There's also been disputes between Apple and Samsung about who owns, and I'm using, air quotes around the word own, who owns the rectangle with rounded corners. There are also disputes over who owns the swiping feature and moving things from one screen to another on a mobile device. And all of these, it's absolutely ludicrous and asinine that people think that you can own an idea. And I'm going to spend the next 9 minutes ranting about intellectual property. And that's the reason that I have this question, is I had a conversation with somebody about the book A Rebel's Journey, and I was telling them, I go through a lot of the issues where I've changed my opinion and come to the conclusion from having a completely opposite view to here's the liberty view. And the question was, well, do you write about intellectual property? And I say, I don't, but I do mention in the afterword, here's a bunch of other topics that I could write about, but for the sake of brevity, I did not include those But some of the ones that I could have written about are ones where I never really had like a solid thought on. Like intellectual property, I never really thought about too much until I was, firmly a libertarian. And then the question was, well, what do you think about intellectual property? And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? And, well, copyright, trademark, etc. And I was like, well, I don't really know. And then, it wasn't very long before I was like, oh, IP is BS. And there's, I forget exactly how he worded it, but I'm going to credit Davi Barker for the statement anyway, where he basically said that claiming intellectual property is not just claiming that you created a product or you created an idea, but it's claiming ownership over neurons in my brain. And I thought about it for a second, and I was like, well, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And the reason that IP is claiming neurons in someone else's brain, and their brain, obviously not your property. So it's a false property claim because you have an idea. I say some words, or I read some words, or I saw a sculpture, or I saw something. And then the idea that I saw or read or heard or whatever is now neurons in my brain. Synapses fire and things connect, and then thoughts happen, and then from thoughts, words and actions. So I see something, it's now a neuron in my brain that is connected to that idea. The person that created the thing cannot rightly claim any ownership over my brain. Like, you can say, like, I created this. Nobody will deny that William Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet. Nobody, well, there might be somebody that denies that. There's, like the 1,000 Monkeys theory. But, no one, let me say, in their right mind, would deny that William Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet. Nobody denies that Mark Twain wrote Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn. But what then from there, if Mark Twain or Huckleberry Finn were still alive today, any deviation or derivative work that came from that. So if somebody made a love story about two teenagers that wound up killing themselves today, in the year 2015, if William Shakespeare were still alive, William Shakespeare could sue those people for infringing on his copyrighted work. Obviously, William Shakespeare does not have the concept of love-torn or love-struck teenagers that commit suicide. Like that's not a concept that no one can ever build on. But because the way intellectual property now works, then that's, if he were still alive, then nobody could do that. I'm surprised that, like, Mickey Mouse has not been construed in such a wide array of all talking mice or ripoffs of Walt Disney's copyright of Mickey Mouse. And now that I say that, I feel as though I'm giving the kneelers some sort of weird way to go after and, like, sue everybody that has a talking mouse. And yes, I used the term kneeler, and for those of you who watch Game of Thrones, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. So, and yes, I realize that, like, I'm way off of talking about Russell Brand and the trademark of the word revolution, but I'll get there eventually. Just bear with me. So for those of you who did not catch or don't understand the reference to the word kneeler, in Game of Thrones, there are these people that live north of this place called the Wall, and they're wildlings, the free folk. They have no king, and so they refer to people that kneel before a king as kneelers. So Russell Brand trademarked revolution. He did not create it. And I think it's absolutely ludicrous that some government agency somewhere gave him the trademark for it. I'll post a link to an article where he tries to justify trademarking something that he did not create. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.